Hello again, friends, and welcome to another fun-filled edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health, the official healthcare partner for SU Athletics. Brent Axe, Mike Waters with you tonight after, I'm going to say that's a weird win. That's how I'm going to put it, Mike. A weird win for the Syracuse University basketball Orange. They take down NC State 87-83. Chris Bell scores 26 points in the first half. Doesn't score in the second half. Quadir Copeland has 25 points. Judah Mintz, 15 points, all in the second half. A 15-point lead for the Orange evaporates. It comes down the stretch. Free throws matter. The Orange hit 18 of 19 in what was a strangely officiated game. A lot of weird, strange things happened in this game. And Mike, if anything, what this team has done is it has beat the hell out of that great meme and, of course, the only good scene from Godfather 3. Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in. They win, they lose. They win, they lose. They beat North Carolina. They only score 60 points against Georgia Tech. They had 55 at halftime in this game, and then a high-scoring game where DJ Horn scores 32 for NC State, by the way, and they win by 4. Can you make sense of this for me? Because I'm having a hard time.
I can't make any more sense out of this than I could trigonometry in high school, Brent. I mean, describing this game is like describing different parts of a roller coaster. It's like there were ups, there were downs, there were crazy twists and turns. Some of it made you excited and happy. Some of it made you want to throw up in your mouth. I mean, it really was. I mean, it's something like in the first half when the ball is moving and Chris Bell is getting open shots and, you know, you're like, man, this is great.
It's happening here, yeah.
And for the roller coaster meme. And then the second half, it's like, oh, buckle up. This is brutal again. It was rocky road. It's grinding. It's, and you just see that 15-point lead evaporate. NC State takes the lead. In the final minutes there, you're like, oh, well, when the home team rallies from 15 down and takes the lead, it's all over, right? And then NC State doesn't score in the last 2 minutes of the game.
Go figure.
I don't know.
Go figure.
We can pick it apart, but
we really can't
right now. I don't know.
I don't know either, but a win is a win in this case. And look, I don't think this team's going to make the NCAA tournament. But, Mike, we're at a point still where I can't say I know they're not going to make it. Like, there's still just this little fleeting, you're telling me there's a chance if they go on a run and they, no matter what, have to go on a serious run in the ACC tournament coming up, right? But they're not dead. And, look, this quad one win that they picked up tonight might not be a quad one win tomorrow because that's just how the quad system works and how it changes and how flawed it is. But this team, I just put North Carolina in the name, and they're going to play well, and they're going to win that game. So, I know they're playing Notre Dame on Saturday, but maybe they can change the name to Notre Dame, North Carolina on the scoreboard or something because they just seem to play well against North Carolina teams as of late. Mike, let's go to the first half, and why was Chris Bell so hot and I thought was going to set a record tonight? The record for made threes in a game is shared by several players, and that's 9. He halts at 8. He was well on his way to tying or, at the very case, beating the record. We thought he was going to make it run at Dennis Scott, who has the ACC record for 11 threes in a single game. We discussed what happened in the second half there. We'll get more into it. But what was he doing in the first half just to get so open and just was white hot in that first half?
First he was making his shots, and Chris Bell's like a lot of shooters. When they see the ball and go in the basket once, all they want is another shot. They want to take, now they're ready to go. They want to take the next one and make it, and they're just in a rhythm, and they kept giving them the ball. To make 8 threes in the first half, you're getting consistent, looks, so you're never cooling down. Also, listen, as great as a half as it was, a lot of it was NC State was losing it. They gave him open shots. A couple of those early ones especially, like, what are you leaving a shooter open for? It's like, that was in the scouting report, right? In the second half, he was not open. They didn't give him open looks. He hardly got the ball. He's not the type of guy who runs his defender ragged, shall we say. Like, he's not, like, running around
No.
like Andy Routen's used to. Nonstop motion, rubbing off screens, back cut, popping open.
No, he hangs in the corner.
He does. He
Yeah,
hangs in
that's
the
a
corner
spot.
a lot, which is fine if it's your spot. But, it means if the other team refuses to help off of you, you will not be open. So in a way, his role in second half became be the guy who NC State couldn't help off of. And that's part of the reason why Judah found a little bit more success there in the second half when he's driving the ball, no help defender. Also you had Quadir was finding spots as well. But, I will criticize a little bit the offense in the second half. I mean, yes, NC State did a wonderful job of just saying, okay, we're not going to let Chris Bell shoot anymore. Done. But the ball didn't move as crisply as it did in the first half.
Not at all.
Yeah. So,
not at all.
And that we've seen that before out of this team. The ball starts to stick. They do have a couple guys in Judah and JJ who, need the ball in their hands in order to drive and score in the lane. So if you're doing that, sometimes the ball doesn't move as well. But, so it was a give and take there. But I was with you at halftime. I was fully convinced we were going to see a new Syracuse record set. Somewhere James Sutherland is like the 72 Dolphins, and he's cracking open the bottle.
There's quite a few guys on that list, right? You got Quadir Copeland, you got Jerry McNamara, Trevor Cooney. I'm missing a couple there. John Gillen on that floor, by the way.
Yes,
did it at NC State? Yeah,
that was an overtime game.
Yep.
Not taking anything away from John in case he's watching. Andy Routens is your fifth guy. And Andy Routens had 9 in a game against somebody. But, it would have been a neat list to join, and you got to wonder at some point Chris might get there. This is the second time this season he's had 8 threes in a game.
I mean, I would have bet the mortgage he was going to at least tie that record in the second half. It's a good thing I don't bet on sports. Quadir Copeland, Mike, second half in particular, he saved Syracuse's bacon. He really did. I mean, defensive plays, getting to the hoop, hitting shots, free throws down the stretch. He had one play where he kind of like one-handed a pass and put it in. He had another beautiful scoop shot, kind of went from one side of the backboard to the other. Dare I say Jordan-esque in that way. Making defensive plays, and we're going to get to this with our Syracuse Sports Insiders because Mike is, as you well know, and I'm just kind of at the point where I just don't care anymore about this, but Q plays with a little bit of flair, and sometimes that can get the best of him, and he's jawing with fans, and he just does it with a smile on his face, and he's kind of the 2024 version of Eric Devendorf in that way. He doesn't do it with a snarl like Devendorf did, but he's kind of becoming that guy that opponents love to hate and opposing fan bases love to hate. And even some SU fans look at it and say, you don't have to do that. But I don't know. I just kind of like the way he plays on that edge of confidence and cockiness. And they don't win this game without him, particularly what he did in the second half.
Another play that was, I think, important and that at least kept Syracuse with the ball was there was a missed shot late in the second half. This was not a game where Syracuse got a lot of rebounds on either end of the floor. I don't know if he gets credit for a rebound on this or not, but he had inside position and he drew a foul on NC State's Taylor. And they retained possession. At the under 5-minute mark, he got that fast break layup. He's out there on the break, the play where DJ Burns, the NC State center, gets called for the flagrant. That was right after State had tied the game at 76-all. NC State's got all the momentum of the world. They finally tie the game. And in the blink of an eye, Quadir's out on the break, getting a layup that he made and drawing a flagrant foul on the other team center.
Great point.
He makes 1 out of 2 free throws. It's the only free throw Syracuse didn't make the whole game long was that one after on the flagrant foul there. And then Syracuse has possession. Now, and Quadir is the one that scores on that out of possession. So Quadir scores 5 in a row on one trip down the floor. All of a sudden you got that 5-point lead again. Yes, NC State is going to come back and take a lead in a few minutes. But if they had kept that momentum going earlier around the 5-minute mark, I don't know if Syracuse is able to survive at the very end. I mean, NC State might have had so much momentum, they might have raced right past them. But that re-break and the flagrant foul I thought was huge.
Well, the flagrant foul, and I want to pause there for a minute here because can they please call something on Kevin Keats? That guy does not leave the floor. He's the new Buzz. And they're saying on the broadcast, like Jay Alter and now Hall of Famer, congratulations to her, Debbie Antonelli, saying on the broadcast, like the refs, they're not going to review it. It's a flagrant. But Kevin Keats was throwing such a fit on the sideline that they basically had to go over and tell him to calm down and that they're not going to review it. Meanwhile, you got Q standing at the free throw line. It's like, that's not fair to the other team that you're over there throwing a fit and you got a guy who's ready to shoot free throws. The refs needed to take command of the game, tell him to shut up, or call a technical on him because he would not settle down. He's on the court the whole game. It drives me crazy when coaches do that.
I'd be interested in finding out, obviously I'm not there tonight and I don't really know if this is like, I think it's going to be lost in the shuffle because of everything else that happened. But I would be curious, how did he get that review? I don't think he was arguing whether it was a flagrant or not. I have to wonder if he wasn't disputing whether Quadir was in the act or not, even though he clearly was in the act of shooting. The basket should have counted.
He shouldn't have got the review one way or the other. I mean, I think
it iced the shooter a little bit. Now, Quadir did make the first free throw.
He did. But
so once you make the first as a shooter, you think you're going to make the
second. But take control of the game. I get coaches have the right to ask for certain reviews. It was like 1/2 a second look at that review, and Burns was not going for the ball. It was a clear flagrant.
Oh, yeah, that was no doubt.
That drove me crazy. But anyway, it was that kind of game, right? A lot of stuff like that happened all over the place.
I tell you what was amazing. The play very late in the game when State is down 2. They've called timeout with under about 13 seconds to go. Obviously, they're going to try to get the ball to DJ Horn. He's got 32 already. He put up a very difficult, highly contested shot with Quadir Copeland guarding him. State, Keats, Horn, they all wanted the foul call. And it was close.
That was a close call.
I didn't get a chance to watch the replay as a bunch of Syracuse fans did because I was working. I had my head down in the laptop and writing.
I did see that replay. I'm surprised they didn't call it.
Are you really?
I will see. The free throw disparity.
State bench.
It's right in front of the state bench too. The free throw disparity. Frankly, Syracuse should have been at the line a bunch more in this game. But the ones they got, they took advantage of, going 18 of 19, as we mentioned. That call you're mentioning, you probably got to call that, considering what you did call throughout this game. So I'll go with that.
Yeah. I think the one reason maybe he didn't get the call is because the way DJ Horn went up for it was so awkward and unorthodox. It was almost like, were you trying to lean in and draw the foul? And a lot of times, referees, the game is so fast. A lot of referees, they learn visual cues. Mm-hmm. If they see the downward motion with a defender with a hand trying to go for a ball, even if if they see that downward motion, it's going to get a whistle 90% of the time. A lot of times when you see a shooter flail like that, that's a visual cue, and they're not going to bail you out. That's actually something Judah Mintz needs to learn.
I was just going to say, he gets that all the time, but he gets it in the paint. This was a three-point shot,
and you know what?
A little different.
He didn't get it as much tonight.
That's true.
So in a weird way, this crew remained consistent. They weren't bailing out guys for going in and creating contact and flailing a lot. And it was frustrating Judah, you could tell. And, I think that's why Horn was frustrated, wanted that call. But a lot of people on both ends didn't get that particular type of call tonight.
Mike, on Judah, I thought this was such a contrast of what the good and bad of Judah Mintz. In the first half, he sits on the bench. He only played 10 minutes, I believe, in the first half of this game. It was said on the broadcast. It was clear. Look, Chris Bell was white hot. It was the one who was going to be getting the ball one way or the other. But the offense was better in the first half with Judah Mintz on the bench. I'm not saying that's got to be the case all the time, but in this game it was. In the second half, now again, here's where I'm going to bounce all over the place here. Judah Mintz is 15 points. They don't win this game without those 15 points. There were at least 3 calls he should have got. As you noted, the refs were just not giving him what he usually looks for in this game. There's a 3-pointer at the end. Chris Bell sitting wide open next to him, and he takes the 3, right? But I look at that second half and some drives he made to the basket, some calls that he did get. He was 4 of 14 shooting in this game. That's right on the line. You had a great stat in one of your recent 5 things to know that if Judah shoots a certain amount, Syracuse loses, flat out. The higher shot attempts he gets, it feels like
field goals.
they lose those games. And he was right on that line tonight.
Yeah, he was right on that line tonight. The offense looked worse in the second half than it did in the first. I don't think I'm going to lay that at the feet of any one player, especially not Judah. I know some fans are going to be like, "Oh, the ball didn't move," sharing, but remember, it looked great and easy in the first half because Chris Bell made 8 threes. And I'll go back to what I said earlier. State wasn't defending very well. They weren't. They were giving him those open shots. So of course the ball's going to go to the hands of an open 3-point shooter. Once they took him away in the second half, and they really did. Now you have to work for everything, and it was work. So yeah, it was just tougher in the second half. I think part of it was NC State made it so.
That's fair. I think that's fair to say. It's just it fascinates me to see that contrast. Even JJ, who was 6 of 15 tonight, he made some key buckets in the second half. Just looking at some other things, Malik Brown tonight, kind of quiet for his standards, 6 points, 4 rebounds, played 34 minutes. He had 4 fouls in this game, and that's always something you got to be careful with, of course, with Malik. As you noted earlier today, Mike, Peter Carey didn't even travel with the team, so he was not available in this game. We'll see if he's available and ready to go on Saturday. He's dealing with a concussion, so you have to be careful with that. Another stat line where it's pretty low for Justin Taylor, just 2 points for him in 17 minutes. We've seen Kyle Cuff get in a little more consistently as of late. He had a couple of rebounds, couple of assists in 9 minutes in this game. But we know who won this game for Syracuse. It was the Chris Bell Quadir show with a little supporting cast there from Judah and JJ. It was that type of night.
Yeah, it really was. And it's really kind of amazing they could win a game with Malik's numbers being so modest, so low for his
especially with Bell and the players that NC State goes with inside. You would think you need a bigger night out of Malik.
You would think. He kept out of foul trouble for most of the night. He did finish with 4. A couple of those came very late in the game. So he actually did a good job staying out of foul trouble.
Or Burns, my fault. Not
I know.
Burns.
I heard you say Burns.
You know who I'm talking about. Big dude in the middle. Burns. Yeah.
The big guy.
The big guy.
It was a tough night. I think Burns is a tough matchup for Malik, although, he did pretty well in that first NC State game up here. This is at least 2 games in a row now, though, where Malik hasn't been getting the ball as much. Offensively, I think he only had 2 shots in the Georgia Tech game, made them both. Tonight, he only takes 4 shots. He only made 1 of them. It was it's been a struggle for him of late. He could use a couple days off here because they're going to need him down the stretch to get back to that, 10 to 12.7 rebound, 3 assists, 5 steal, filling every box on the stat sheet type of player that he was there for a good stretch of the season. But, back in January, early February, these last 2 games have been a struggle for Malik. I would like to see him kind of get going again. They need him.
Mike, one last thought before we let you go here, because you get asked this a lot and I get asked this a lot. So I just kind of want to put it on the record here on this podcast. We get, given the short bench, given the injuries, people are asking why William Patterson isn't playing and where Chance Westry is at in his development, right? So let's just put it out there officially. We're laughing because we get asked this a lot. But people are curious. They want to know what the deal is. So let's, as best you know, why we're not going to see either one of those 2 down the stretch.
Well, Chance still hasn't been cleared to practice. He's not practiced yet. He's not gone full out in practice.
There was footage of him at practice on like an Instagram video. People are like, is he back? Is he back? It's like, well, there's a difference between
he's shooting.
Yeah, exactly. That's not like practice. That's not Allen Iverson. We're talking about practice. That's a different kind of thing.
And listen, even if let's say tomorrow, well, actually tomorrow's an off day. So, let's say he comes back and practices full court, 5-on-5. He's able to go on Thursday. You're looking at a guy who hasn't played in over a year. Are you really going to risk burning a medical red shirt for 4 regular season games at this point? How much do you really think Chance Westry is going to help? I mean, this is sort of like the backup quarterback syndrome for fans. I think Chance, can be a great player, but I think he's going to be a great player next season at this point. William Patterson, why, again, you hope Peter's back by Saturday against Notre Dame. And if he is, then you go back to you still have, your 3 centers. You have Malik, you have Peter, and then Munir is your emergency guy. the coaches know what they got. I think if they thought William Patterson could really help them win a game right now, if he was better than Peter Carey or Munir Hema, he'd play. But no, not going to do that to him. He's a freshman. He's not played in 26 games or however many it is. 27 games. You don't play him at this point. It would be unfair to the kid.
And that's it. Like when you're this far down the road and you haven't played and you throw him into the pool here, like why? But that's the thing. That team is such on the line of, I don't think they're going to the tournament, but I don't know they're not going to the tournament yet. If this was like I don't know, losing record, or you had a little bit more room to play with and they were healthier, maybe you see those guys. But at this point, no, we're just not going to see it. But we appreciate your questions. We really do. You guys are curious, want to know what's going on with the team. But yeah, they're kind of at the point of no return with either one of those guys. And now, watch, I say that, and they'll both play against Notre Dame.
I know, right?
Saturday. Yeah, we just jinxed it. We just jinxed it.
It's like, Mike and Brent. No,
Thank you, Michael. Good insight as always, my friend. We will see you again soon.
Oh, and don't forget to plug my 5 podcasts in 5 days leading up to Jim Boeheim Day.
That's right. How dare I not plug this, because it's been great. So are you ready to reveal a couple more names that are coming up, or is this like a daily reveal type of thing? What's how we going to plug this?
I think a lot of fans out there have already guessed tomorrow's guest, because they were asking me earlier in the week about PJ Carl. Someone asked about PJ Carlissimo. And I said, well, I do have a different Italian-American coach who used to be in the Big East. And if you know anything about Jim Boeheim, Syracuse basketball history, and his coaching staffs, you know exactly who's coming on Wednesday. It's the coach of St. John's.
Oh, it's not Raleigh Massimino, right? You said Italian-American. I'm going through all the names.
Lou Carnesecca.
There's a lot. Exactly.
You're right.
Who would be great to have, by the way. Louis C. But yeah, it is Rick Pitino. And I think Mike talked to Rick before he kind of crushed his team in a post-game situation recently. So I don't think you got to ask him about that. But
don't ask me why I didn't ask Rick about that, because I did talk with him before that game. So and then we're going to keep Thursday and Friday's guests on the QT right now. We're going to
looking forward to it
day by day. But believe me, the ones coming up are really fun and revealing and interesting. I think fans will like them.
So Mike said 5 podcasts in 5 days leading up to the big Jim Boeheim celebration on Saturday. Make sure you subscribe to the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast. You can find it on our YouTube channel, Syracuse Orange Sports, on syracuse.com, or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And looking forward to the ones coming down the pike here as we get closer to Saturday. Michael, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Brent. Have a good night now.
You too, sir. There he is, the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Waters. We're working him hard, man. 5 podcasts in 5 days. Whew. I got to keep up with that guy. Don't give the boss any ideas there. Brent, you're only doing like 2 podcasts a week. Waters over there doing 5 a week. Whew. Got to pick up the pace here a little bit. What do you say we pick up the pace with our Syracuse Sports Insiders, who were texting great things throughout the game, and we would love for you to join the party, friends. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you get to text me directly. I text you directly. Your questions, comments, opinions, insight, whatever's on your mind, anytime, you text it directly to me at 315-847-3895. What you want to do is text the word orange to that number, and you will get a link to sign up. And the cool thing about being a Syracuse Sports Insider is you can try it out free for 2 weeks. Come on board. See what's happening. And then it's just $3.99 a month. After that, our community is growing. Love hearing from our Syracuse Sports Insider, getting to meet our Syracuse Sports Insiders, and come on by. We are having a blast with it, and you guys get your questions and comments answered on every Syracuse Sports podcast and Syracuse Basketball postgame show. And leading us off tonight is Michael S., who says Chris Bell had a GMAC in the national championship first half. Unfortunately, Quadir became his Carmelo in the second half of this game. Good way to put it there, Michael. As Vern says, oi, so happy to get the Quad 1 road win, but are you kidding me? Was the second half game plan to ignore Chris Bell? Vern adding, not only did he not score after dropping 26 in the first half, I don't know if he shot or even touches the ball for more than a few seconds. And this is what I was talking about with Mike a few minutes ago. I'm all over the place on this. there's got to be a way to get Chris Bell involved in the offense in the second half. Now, Chris Bell tends to linger in the corner too much. Mike said it. He's not Andy Routen's just running around the three-point line like Wile E. Coyote, right? But there's got to be a way to run some plays, get him involved, charge it up, right? You can see the frustration on his face. There were a couple times, I mentioned the Judah Mintz three that he took. Chris Bell's right next to him, wide open. The more high percentage shooter, a shot, all the boxes you got to check there. Judah can't be taking that three. So you go back and forth. He had 26 points in the first half. He had 8 3-pointers. I would have bet the mortgage that guy's going to at least tie the record of 9 threes made in the game. Doesn't get there. The all-over-the-place nature of this team really showed up in this game there. So I'm all over the place on that one. NC State did defend him better. There's no question. There were times that Burns came out and guarded Chris Bell on three-point attempts, the few that he did have, or the times he saw the ball in the second half. But that's where I think, again, people get frustrated with what can become kind of an ISO offense when Judah and JJ, for that matter, in this game tonight, kind of take matters in their own hands. But that's on Bell, too, because he just kind of goes and hangs in that corner and just expects the ball to come to him, which in this game, why wouldn't you? As hot as he was in the second half. So I'm telling you, my thoughts are all over the place on this game. Can you be frustrated by a win? I think sometimes you can be. But Kevin S. notes it here. Just one thing to say, Brent. Hashtag free throws matter. This is why free throws matter, guys. These are the games where they matter. When it's tight, you're getting to the line. And the officiating in this game, I'm sorry, was abysmal. Judah Mintz got just flat out hacked. And look, Judah complains a lot about not getting calls, but he should have got those calls, right? Judah, I think, expects calls. He's very good at it. He gets in the paint and almost expects every time he goes in there, either he's going to score or he's going to get fouled, right? He has kind of trained his game to think that way. There were 2 calls I can think of off the top of my head that he did not get, that he should have got. Syracuse went to the free throw line 19 times, made 18. Free throws matter. They should have been at the free throw line at least 28 times in this game. I mentioned the Kevin Keats thing. Call technical on that guy. He's on the court. He's throwing a hissy fit on the sideline. At some point, as an officiating crew, you have to take control of the game and tell him to get his butt back where he belongs. That drives me crazy. I hate when coaches do that and think they can be anywhere on the court. There's a reason they pass that rule, and you have to stay behind that line, right? He's the new buzz. It drives me nuts. That one situation I talked about with Mike, that is unfair to Quadir Copeland to leave him hanging on the free throw line. It did ice him. He only made 1 of 2, the one they missed in the game. So it ultimately did not mattering there. But grow up. Take control of the game back from these coaches that, I mean, they clearly said, we're not going to review this. It's a flagrant, deal with it, right? Can you tell? It's still chapping me at this point. But come on. I feel like this has become a theme. And look, Syracuse fans think every officiating crew is out to get them. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes, the old ACC bias comes in. It's not bias, guys. I talk about this during football season, too. It's just you have some crews that are inconsistent. They're just inconsistent. They're not biased, because we talked about that call that Quadir probably should have got at the end of the game. It did go both ways, but generally, I'm with you tonight. The officiating, let's just say it was inconsistent, and I'll be nice and leave it at that. Sandra says, a great win down to the wire. Did you notice Copeland jawing with the NC State fans after the game? What are your thoughts on that? And I'm going to go over a couple more texts here. Bruce D says, I like Q's fire, but he needs to keep his mouth shut more often. This team needs more discipline, I think. Nonetheless, a huge win. And Paul Leo adds this, who can figure this orange team out? Back in December, we all said this was going to be a fun squad to watch. They aren't going dancing, but it has been a crazy ride. Okay, now on Copeland. I got to say, guys, I don't have a problem with it. I don't. I think this is just a different generation of player. Michael Jordan, this is the second time I've made a Jordan comparison to Q tonight, jawed all the time. I know that's the pros. This is college. I'm going to make a weird comparison here, but it's the thought that popped in my head. I don't know if any of you guys out there are a fan of the show The West Wing. That's one of my all-time favorite shows. And one of my favorite episodes of The West Wing is Let Bartlett Be Bartlett, right? You got to let Q be Q. That's how he plays. He does it with a smile on his face. He does it with flair. He does jaw with fans and sometimes the officials, sometimes the opposing coaches. I think it's all in good fun. It's part of his game. There are times when he tries to make kind of that extra pass he doesn't have to make, the behind the back pass, that he doesn't have to make, but he's consistent in this. That's who he is. So to tell him to not do some of those things you're mentioning, you're telling him not to play his game, and that's a game that scored 25 points tonight, that made huge defensive plays down the stretch, that hit those free throws. Q wants the ball in his hand. He does straddle that line between confident and cocky, and I think you need a player like that out there. And I made the Devendorf comparison. Now, Devendorf did it with a snarl on his face. Q does it with a smile on his face. That can mess with the other team. When you have somebody that's just playing the way they're playing, and when you look at them, they just got that smile, right? And that can just take another team out of their game. That's how he plays. Do I shake my head sometimes? I do, right? But I also try to remember he's, how old is Q, right? 20, 21 years old, having the time of his life as a college basketball player. I got to let it go. Now, there's probably going to be something that happens down the road here. We'll be like, you found the line and you stepped over it. I'm not giving him like a complete hall pass on this, but I think you got to let Q be Q. That's my answer to that. You guys might not like that, and I understand if you don't, but you got to remember who you're dealing with here, right? Just like the big debate about the court storming after the North Carolina game and all the old fuddy-duddies say, you don't storm the court after you beat North Carolina. For those kids, they do. That was the first rank win that they saw in the Dome. First time Syracuse beat a top 10 team in 5 years. And everybody was fine. The one thing, not to go back to this debate, but the one thing you can sell me on about not storming the court is it's a safety issue, right? But those kids, that's their moment. Who are we to tell them don't have your moment? Are they supposed to like consult you first? Well, hold on, let me text Grandpa before I rush the court. Back in my day, we only rushed the court when we beat the number one team in the country. Like, well, that's your generation. It's just a different generation of players. I try to keep that in mind. I try to be fair about that. But if you don't like it, I guess I can see that. Kyle M. says, good to see them finish and get the gritty road win when they deserve it. Still some questionable decision-making by a few guys down the stretch, but a first-half performance to remember from a guy who still has plenty of room to grow. Quad 1 win in the books. See, that's why I'm all over the place with this game. I think Mike made a good point about when Chris Bell's hitting his threes, the offense does move better, but the offense moved better without Judah out there in the first half. But they don't win the game without his 15 points in the second half. He should have had probably 20 points because of the free throw opportunities that the officials took away from him. I don't have a lot of complaints about Quadir, but you can kind of look at some of those flare plays that he makes that rub people the wrong way. Chris Bell, 26 in the first half, just stands in the corner, offense more stagnant, not moving around in the second half. Justin Taylor, absent once again in this game. Malik Brown, look, it was inevitable. They're asking him to do a lot. You got Burns in the paint there. Malik was doing so much that for him to be off a little bit, it's going to happen. Got into foul trouble, had 4 fouls. So you're not going to just have that double-double off the chart stats that Malik Brown has had at times this year. But there was such a yin and a yang about this game. This is like the yeah, but win. They won, yeah, but as some of you guys are pointing out here on our Syracuse Sports Insider text about, that's kind of the theme, looking at all my texts tonight. They won, yeah, but what about this, right? I said it earlier. Can you be frustrated with a win? But they did it. That's what this team does. I said it at the beginning of this podcast. I will say it again. They have burned out the Al Pacino just when I thought I was out. They pulled me back in type of situation, right? That's this team. Lacey saying my random mishmash of thoughts. My gosh, my heart. Cardiac cues in this one. Hashtag free throws matter. Without shooting 95% from the line, this game would have been a loss. My man Quadir delivering tonight. So there's Lacey, who likes the Quadir theatrics. Jeff says that was a great win. Syracuse made plays when they had to. Q was huge tonight. Judah was Judah. You knew they were not going to leave Bell open in the second half. Rob W. saying Quadir had a great game, but I can deal without the extracurriculars. There, that is that again. Between his yapping to the student section, Judah complaining about fouls not called, and Bell getting into it with opposing fans on social media, it just shows how immature this team is. And look, I've said that 100 times on this show. It's an immature basketball team that, to be fair, I have said on this show, they've got to grow up, meaning other things as a basketball team, but there is some immature things that still exist this late in the season. They're pretty much all sophomores, have not become juniors yet in some ways, but look how Judah played against North Carolina. Look how Quadir played tonight in another big games. Chris Bell. There was a time when Chris Bell had just gone stagnant in the offense. He has been on his game several times down the stretch, evolving, growing, maturing as a player. I didn't say the social media stuff you're talking about, but name me a kid that doesn't get into the social media stuff. When you're in the public eye, like a Division I basketball player is, you got to be careful about that stuff. But John with the student section, I mean, that's all in good fun, right? I think you kind of have to keep this all in context. It doesn't change what you described and what I've said, to be fair, that it's an immature team. And with an immature team, you get some of the inconsistencies, even in a win like this. They're up by 15 points at halftime. That evaporates, but they did make the plays, hold off NC State, who didn't score in like the last 2.5 minutes of the game, hit their free throws. And this team, just as inconsistent as they are, when they find a way, right? It's just like, I'm trying to think of a comparison here. Everybody's maybe had that brother or sister or son or daughter or somebody you know in the family that you don't quite know what you're going to get, and you kind of breathe a sigh of relief, like when they come over for Thanksgiving. It's like, oh, Timmy behaved himself this time, right? That's kind of this team. A couple more from you guys. Jeff says Adrian Autry, with a bare-bones roster, has managed to pull off a couple of huge Quad 1 wins. Likely not enough for the tournament, but so hopeful for the future. He's the right man to lead this team. Jack H. says, shout out to the referees for making this game mean absolutely nothing about what happens on the floor. Yeah, they were terrible. The second half officiating was atrocious. All that said, as Jack notes, we did everything we could to lose the game. Autry's coaching decisions in the second half are baffling. He tried to get Bell the ball once in the second half. I wanted to read those two texts back to back, because it's interesting, the perception, right? I think generally Autry, with, as Jeff noted, a bare-bones roster, all the stuff that's happened, kick Benny Williams off the team, the ups and downs, the inconsistencies of this team. You beat the 7th-ranked team in the country. One game, the next game you only score 60 points. This game, 87 points, lead by 15 at halftime. Chris Bell is the night of his life, doesn't score in the second half. Like, it's actually appropriate how all over the place this team is, but then you look up, you're like, man, they're 17-10. They're 8-8 in the ACC. They're not making the tournament, but I can't, who is it that Seth Davis, right, does the Sharpie on Twitter whenever a team wins or something's over. You can't Sharpie this team yet out of the tournament. You can't. Like, I'm not putting money on it. They're not going to make it, but they're not out of it either. Like, they can theoretically go on a run here and then go on a run in the ACC tournament. The reason they're not going to do that is because this is a team that win, loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Like, that's what they do. But just when you think they're out, they pull you back in. Syracuse basketball, 2023-2024 season. That is going to be the theme of this season, I think, down the stretch. So they'll be back at it Saturday, noon at the JMA Wireless Dome, the big celebration for Jim Boeheim coming up. And as Mike noted, he's got a lot of great guests that have played with Jim Boeheim, coached with Jim Boeheim, and by the time you get to Saturday, you're going to know everything you possibly need to know about the career. Not that you don't at this point, but a great reflection on Jim Boeheim, and there will be a big celebration on Saturday at that game. Notre Dame coming in, of course, J.J. Starling seeing the squad he played with for a year, so we'll see if what Syracuse team shows up on Saturday, because this is actually not a good analogy. It's just the one that popped in my head. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Actually, there's a little key when you get the box of chocolates. It tells you, somebody should have told Forrest and his mom, flip over the lid. It actually tells you the chocolates that are in the box. Anyway, that's this team, though. You just don't know which Syracuse team is going to show up. It's almost part of the appeal of this team. Let's see which one shows up at noon on Saturday when they take on Notre Dame at the JMA Wireless Dome. That is going to be our next Syracuse basketball postgame show. If you haven't listened yet, little football note, we had new Syracuse offensive coordinator Jeff Nixon on the Syracuse Sports Podcast. If you missed that, all the places you can get it, Syracuse Orange Sports, on syracuse.com, on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. If you missed that conversation, Emily Leiker and I had a really fun conversation with Jeff Nixon, who kind of laid out what he's going to be doing with the Syracuse football offense. We're working on some other stuff for you on the Syracuse Sports Podcast. And our Syracuse Sports Insiders will always be a part of it. You'll always get a heads up who's on the podcast, your questions, your comments, your opinions, your insight, always a part of this podcast. And we thank our Syracuse Sports Insiders for being a part of it. And we would love for you to join the community today. Just text the word orange to 315-847-3895. Try it free for 2 weeks. It's just $3.99 a month after that. And we would love for you to become a Syracuse Sports Insider. That's what we'll cut it off for tonight, friends. Syracuse wins just a weird game, but a win nonetheless. 87-83 over NC State. For Mike Waters, I'm Brent Axe. This has been Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for SU Athletics. We'll catch you next time.